And welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, December 16th, 2024. I am the Board Chair, Eric Eldridge. The following meeting is being recorded and broadcast by Tyngsborough Media. The meeting is available through our local cable access channels on Xfinity and Verizon Fios, and is a live stream on our website, www.tyngsboroughma.gov. A recording of this meeting will be available through the video on demand portion of our website. Open meeting laws require that any member of the audience who intends on recording either video or audio so declare that now. Seeing none, after instruction from the State Fire Marshal and the Tyngsborough Fire Chief, in the event of an emergency, there is an exit directly across from me at the rear of the room and one to my left. At this point, I would like to ask all of those who can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we'll start with board introductions. To my left.
Good evening, Jacqueline Schnackers, Executive Assistant.
Good evening, Mike Moran.
Good evening, Ron Schneider.
Hi there, Jackie Gilfus.
Good evening, Ron Cohane.
Good evening, Colin Loisel, Town Manager.
Good evening, Kat Foster, Assistant Town Manager.
Excellent. All right. Well, we got hopefully a relatively light agenda, but very important stuff. So why don't we start off with some meeting minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move regular session meeting minutes for review and approval for December 2nd, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? That carries 5-0-0.
Mr. Chair, I move the executive session meeting minutes for review, approval, but not release for December 2nd, 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That carries 5-0-0. Citizen and business time. Any citizens wishing to address the board? Seeing none. You know what, Colin? Let's do the town manager's report when it is scheduled.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right. There's a lot happening, so this is a little bit longer, but if you miss any of it, of course, you can catch it on the town's website tomorrow morning. A big thank you to Pam Russell and the Tyngsborough Firefighters Association for hosting our second Wreaths Across America event over the weekend. It was a great turnout, as always. We hosted it in the town center on our Veterans Monument, so it was a nice chance to showcase the work that we've done in our town center. And it's great to see so many members of our community and staff come together to honor and remember the sacrifice of our military veterans and their families. I'm happy to share that this morning I spoke to Senator Kennedy, who informed me that earlier today they approved our home rule petition for 3 additional liquor licenses in the House. It will now make its way to the Senate, which I believe is scheduled to vote on it tomorrow. If it doesn't make it on their agenda for tomorrow, it will be on Thursday. I have no doubts that it'll pass there. And then it'll make its way over to the governor's office, where it will await her signature. So we are certainly on track to hopefully have that signed by January 1st. We've already talked to Sam Park at the 440. He's eagerly awaiting some additional liquor licenses. So this will be a helpful boost there. As you all know, we're knee-deep in the budget process, and so moving forward, I want to make sure that when there's not a budget-related item on your agenda, I'm giving you a high-level update of where we stand. We're about halfway through our initial budget meetings with department heads, and we'll wrap up the remaining by early next week. I want to give a big shout-out to our department heads. They take the process very seriously, and they do their very best to meet our level service approach while appropriately advocating for service growth where necessary. At a high level, right now, our biggest unknown is where new growth is going to land. We're hoping for a new growth number of $800,000, which is much less than we expected when we projected 3 years ago where Toll Brothers would be at this point. There were also some other large projects that we were counting on that haven't come to fruition yet. So that said, assuming we get to $800,000, we're in a decent position. Our department heads, nobody has submitted anything that is so dramatically outside of the realm of what we could afford. There are some things that I think our departments would like to have added to the budget, but may not make it this year. Dave Andrews and I are meeting regularly with our chief assessor, the building commissioner, and our economic development director, so that we're continuously updating our projections, not just for fiscal '26, but also fiscal '27 and fiscal '28. I've talked in previous meetings about the warehouse project permitted behind the highway garage, which is subject to that Mass Works grant. And then, of course, we're all familiar with the proposal, which has not yet made its way to the planning board, for a continuing care campus. Those are kind of the two largest new growth items that we're hoping to see come online in the next couple of years. In the meantime, our chief assessor has a meeting set up with Toll Brothers to get a better understanding of what their plans are. Our building commissioner has issued a few new permits in the last couple of weeks, so they're certainly starting to pick that up. We, of course, can't start assessing the full value until they get an occupancy permit. So we're hoping for $800,000. We have contingencies in place if we don't get there, but we're certainly in a much better position than I would have expected. We're fortunate that all of our labor contracts have been settled with the exception of one. Our fire union, their contract expires at the end of this year. We've had 3 or 4 now bargaining sessions that have all been very productive, so I have no reason to suspect that we won't know those numbers by late February or early March. One of the things I do want to put on the board's radar is that we're trying to be cognizant, even if we end up in a better than expected position in fiscal '26, we've done really well over the last 3 years with our building permit fees, obviously because Toll Brothers has really ramped up their construction. I expect that will continue into next fiscal year, and when we go over our revenue projections, you'll see that we're accounting for some level of that as well. And this board, a couple years ago, did increase the building permit fees, so that was positive. One of the things that we expect, though, is once Toll Brothers is done, and assuming that these projects don't come into the picture as quickly as we'd like, certainly that revenue from building permits will fall back down to a more appropriate number. I think we're looking at landing somewhere in the 1.3, 1.4 million for fiscal '25. We projected 800,000, so that's a huge boost. We're going to budget obviously less than 1.3. I think we'll be at the 1.1, 1.2 number for next year. After that, once Toll Brothers is complete, we can expect that number to come back down to the 800 or 900. So even if it looks like we're doing really well on the revenue front in fiscal '26, we just have to be cognizant that some of that revenue isn't going to continue into future years. So adding anything now with the expectation that revenue is going to stay there would be not wise in my assessment. Last week, we announced a formal change to our recycling collection schedule, which I've talked about at a previous meeting. All we've done is said if you live on the east side of the bridge, your recycling is all going to be picked up on the same week. If you live on the west side, it'll be picked up on the same week, but a different one from the other side. This is going to eliminate a lot of the crisscrossing that Republic Services is having to do. It makes recovering missed pickups challenging. In order to implement this, we've started our communication. We announced it last week on our social media and our website. It's been on the digital message board in the town center. Republic Services will be putting in the mail tomorrow morning a flyer that will hit every single address in Tyngsborough. If you are on the east side, your first collection in the new year will be January 13th. You'll be A week. If you're on the west side, which is this side with Town Hall, the elementary school, Sullivan Farms, the Pheasant Lane Mall, your first collection as B week will be on January 6th. Now, I know what you're thinking, why is B week before A week? B week was already scheduled to happen on January 6th, and by continuing with B week on the 6th, the least number of houses were impacted. When we solicited feedback, the only concern we got was the people who are going to go from a B week to an A week. They would technically have a 3-week gap in pickups. Republic will pick up those houses. There's a list of streets on the east side of town. They will get their regular pickup on January 6th, so they're not going to miss one. They'll technically have an extra pickup, but we know that after the holidays, skipping a week of recycling pickup could be challenging. I put a lot of words out there. Our website has a map, which is very easy to understand. And again, every single address in Tyngsborough is going to receive a mailer from Republic that not only has information about the change, but it has an updated recycling calendar. So when in doubt, you can call our Board of Health at 978-649-2300, extension 118, and we'll tell you exactly where your pickup is. Chief Woods and I announced last week steps that are being taken by the town and Nature's Remedy to address the traffic challenges over there. Knock on wood, we haven't seen any complaints recently. There will always be volume. I think once Yellow House opens, we'll see that volume shift a little bit, but there will always be some level of volume. We've put a full list of those steps on the website. I won't repeat them today. We're going to continue to monitor the traffic situation, and should we make any headway with MassDOT, as folks know, that's a state jurisdiction roadway, so we're limited in what we can do. We'll update the board. I do want to say Nature's Remedy has been very cooperative, and again, since we made those changes, everything seems to be working well. kind of the biggest one is they've hired on-site security for the parking lot. So they're helping move people along. If there's not enough room for them in the parking lot, they're continuing on their way down Middlesex. This isn't included in my report, but I did learn today that Yellow House has closed out its permit with MassDOT. If you've driven by, you can see that they've tied into Middlesex Road. I expect that they're going to get an occupancy permit from the building commissioner today or tomorrow. That will allow them to move to the final step with the Cannabis Control Commission, which can take up to 2 weeks. But we're certainly looking at an early January opening of Yellow House. I wanted to give a shout out to the Tyngsborough Dunstable Rotary and volunteers of the Council on Aging who baked and packaged almost $100 of cookies for our seniors receiving Meals on Wheels and for distribution at the Center for Active Living's holiday party. I believe that Mr. Cohane was one of those elves, so thank you to everybody that helped there. The state's 911 department has awarded the town $56,000 to support overtime and equipment costs in our emergency 911 center for fiscal year '25. On a high level, that brings the total town grant receipt in fiscal year 2025 with just 6 months down to over $1.7 million. So kudos to our staff that are actively applying for and getting these grants. An update on our efforts to identify the appropriate parcel or parcels for a new fire station and police station. Mr. Cohane, Mr. Schneider, and I met with both chiefs last week and reviewed 13 sites. We did a deep dive, and at the conclusion of both of those meetings, we've identified parcels for each that we'll further explore. To that end, I'm waiting on a formal proposal from LaValle Brensinger to conduct a test analysis for a new fire station on the 250 Middlesex Road parcel. That test will help us better understand a potential layout on the site, what some of the limitations may be, and confirm without a reasonable doubt that that site will work. We are certainly prepared with other options should this one not work out, but I think collectively we felt that that site at the current moment presented the most advantageous location for fire. On the police side, we have identified a town-owned parcel of land on Lakeview Ave that could accommodate the police department. It's raw land, it's large enough to host a PD, so we won't need to spend any money on site exploration. Certainly, we're still looking at some sites on the west side of the bridge to make it a little bit more convenient. We had explored the 120 Westford Road parcel, which currently houses our old rec building. The site had far too many constraints in terms of wetlands, egress, and ingress that we as a group decided it probably would be difficult, but in reviewing the site with LaValle Brensinger, we decided that it would be way too challenging for a police department. Just a reminder for the public that we have a few upcoming town office and library schedule changes. This Wednesday, Town Hall in the Tyngsborough Public Library will open late at 11 a.m. to accommodate our annual all-staff training. Big thank you to this board and to the Board of Library Trustees for supporting this annual training. Additionally, the Town Hall, the Center for Active Living, and the Tyngsborough Public Library will close at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, December 24th. And obviously, all town offices in the library will be closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. This is our last meeting before the holidays, so I just want to take a minute to wish all of our residents and staff a wonderful holiday season. I'd also like to remind folks that as you're out celebrating over the next few weeks, please do so safely. Obviously, avoid drinking and driving and take it easy on the road so that everyone gets to enjoy the holiday season. Our dedicated public safety personnel will be out in full force, ready to assist as necessary, and we're especially grateful to all of them who will give up time with family this season to keep our community safe. That, of course, doesn't include just police and fire, but also our Department of Public Works folks who stand ready to clear snow, sand roads, fix sinkholes, get sewer running, and much more while all of us enjoy time with our family.
Thank you. Kat, before we open it up.
Hate to follow that with one thing. The Capital Asset Management Committee met last week to review the FY26 through FY30 department requests. The town manager and I will continue to meet with departments to refine these requests and stick to the schedule that the Capital Asset Management Committee was presented earlier this year.
Thank you. I will open it up to the board. For questions, comments, why don't we start with Select Person Moran?
Nice work. I'm good, thank you.
Just one question on your first bullet point, talking about the Toll Brothers property. Do we have a sense, sort of percentage-wise, what percent is completed of the overall project?
My understanding is that there are 16 units left to sell, and they have pulled permits for probably all but 20.
Out of a total of
100.
Okay.
they certainly won't pull the permits on the 16 until they're sold, because there's an
course.
aspect of it that's custom. They have ramped up the permits that they're pulling for the ones that have sold, so I expect in the next few weeks, we'll probably get to that break-even point where there's 16 unsold and 16 that haven't pulled permits. It'd be great if you started collecting the revenue, obviously, when the permits are pulled. We are getting permit revenue from it, so that's a positive. Until they reach substantial completion and get an occupancy permit, though, they won't hit our new growth. So I expect certainly all of the permits that are pulled, in the next few weeks, we'll see that new growth by June 30th, which will allow us to count it. I think that it's anybody's guess how quickly they move forward on selling those remaining 16 units. So at the very least, we'd be looking at 16 units, assuming a worst-case scenario, that we won't see any new growth for until the following fiscal year.
Any idea how many are completed of the 100?
I can get you that number.
Okay, just curious.
not totally
That's fine.
certain.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Select Person Gilfus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really, the only comment is I highly recommend that if people have any questions about the recycling, look at the images on the website, because I read the explanation and could not follow it, and then I looked at the image and it was very clear. So the image is on the website, very clear. So thank you for organizing that. That's it.
Okay, yeah, I do want to thank Pam Russell and the Tyngsborough Firefighter Association again. It's a great event to honor and remember the sacrifice of our military veterans and their families. I was at it last year. It was a great event. I wasn't able to make it this year, but it looks like it's going to become an annual event, and I would encourage anybody that would like to go to, attend that. I did want to talk a little bit about the Nature's Remedy, and there's been a lot of discussion about the increased traffic, around there. And, when you look at Facebook sometimes, you get some misleading information, and I wanted to clear a couple things up. One is that we had a plan to put a marijuana facility in the southern part of Middlesex Road. There was a proposal, but really not a plan. The proposal that we had for that, our police chief did not feel it was appropriate to put it in the south side, if at all necessary. And he didn't want, a business to be co-located with the marijuana facility. So, and he highly recommended that we put both of them on the north side of Middlesex. So, having said that, that's why we focused it on the northern part. And the northern part of Middlesex is where we've also been wanting to, have a lot of commercial development. The resident's been put in front of the residents for many years. The sewer, expansion of the sewer passed overwhelmingly. And then I also heard about 440, that's gonna increase the traffic. Anytime you add commercial development, you're gonna increase the traffic. It goes hand in hand. It's the first negative I've heard about 440, but, and as 440 is going to increase quite a bit here over the next year. As Colin said, there's 3 liquor licenses that are available, and the developer wants those liquor licenses for the spring/summer. So he's going to be adding some more amenities to that location. And then there's another, comment about, turning left, out of Nature's Remedy. Anybody who wants to turn left on a 4-lane road really better be careful. It can be very, when the traffic is going, it can be very difficult. And that's something that's been happening, in every business, in every town in the state, if you have a 4-lane highway. And I just want to thank, Colin and our police chief in rectifying, a lot of the traffic issues there. Whenever we do see an issue, please inform us. We knew about this pretty quickly, through people giving me a call and then through Facebook. And, they looked at the issue like we do every issue that we see that could be, affecting our residents. And that's all I'll say about that. Thank you.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, to piggyback on the Nature's Remedy and other traffic in the north side of Middlesex Road. Definitely a seasonal item. It happens everywhere. There's a mall there. Sometimes I think we need to have a little bit of patience. I do believe that there was valid concerns around safety of people walking across and employees. And I think that Nature's Remedy and working with Colin and Chief Woods, I believe that that is being addressed. And I think, it's one of those things that we're going to revisit next year, as we approach the Thanksgiving and holiday season, to just reiterate and make sure that we're continuing to address that. I am very concerned about safety issues, traffic and slowdowns and delays and those types of things. I'm a little bit less sensitive to. Having dealt with them all for decades, it's always been a challenge. It's probably less so than it was before Amazon and all the things that have happened. So I appreciate the efforts to attack the issues as they come about, and they're rapidly changing. So I think we're responsive to those, and we'll continue to be responsive. The Wreaths Across America, kudos to Pam and Brad and a variety of folks that have done an awful lot of work in not only having an event, it grew. So I was there last year, again this year. Great to see more people, more kids as well. I think it's a fantastic event. It was so good that Drake-It said, hey, we should be doing this. So I guess, the sincerest form of flattery, so they were copied. And it's fantastic. I think it's a great event. I do encourage people to participate. It is the holiday season, and we do need to remember those who have sacrificed their time and sometimes their lives. So great event. Kudos to everybody for a fantastic job. A very solemn event. Roni did a good video. If you want to watch that, I thought that was very helpful. Other than that, I agree. I think we need to figure out on the recycling. Let's over-communicate. There will be people that that will run into the issues, and I know it's the holiday season, so I know if anybody is concerned about their recycle, I have lots of boxes, and I know we brought some to the DPW and dropped those off because I ran out of room. Amazon makes a lot of visits to my house, unfortunately, but we'll get through it. But I think at the end of the day, the new schedule is the right way to go. I mean, east and west, that's how the town is around here. That side, it gets done. It will use a lot less gas and a lot better. Makes a lot more sense, and hopefully a little less traffic too going across the bridges. So great update as always. I do look forward to seeing this wherever podcasts are found, and so that I can listen to it on my ride into work. But thank you for the updates. Anybody have anything else relative to those?
I think we surpassed our fundraising for the Wreaths Across America. Is that, do you know? You don't know. When I had looked at it towards the end, I think we had funded all of the wreaths that we were going to place, which is a really big deal that our community was able to do that. So even if people couldn't get out and physically lay the wreaths down, people really stepped up and supported the wreaths. So awesome.
Oh yeah, they do a great job getting the word out between the block party. I know once the block party on, they're working very diligently, and they do a fantastic job of just the ceremony was fantastic. They connected with veterans and families, and just when Wes was reading off the reminders for everything so that people understand, you sit there and go, Pam has every little box checked, every little detail is there. So fantastic event. Another great event for the community. All right, well now we can get into new business. Why don't we start with 5A? We have our town planner, economic development director, Ben here, so we'll start with
Come on
yours
up,
if you
Ben.
want to come on up, Ben, and I'll let you
Absolutely.
kick it off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to have Ben come to a meeting, first to introduce himself. I'm not sure that all of you had a chance to meet him. Ben joined us earlier this year in the Economic Development Town Planner role and has really hit the ground running. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the things that he's working on, and we'll end that with a presentation on the Economic Development Advisory Committee that Ben has been working on and that we're looking to kickstart. One of the things that Ben and I talk about regularly is the fact that we've kind of gotten to a point in Tyngsborough where there's only select parcels left to be developed, aside from, of course, the occasional shift in businesses in an existing building. And so we really think that we need to be far more specific on how we market Tyngsborough. We know, and Ben is part of a few different networking groups in the region, we know what industries need space, we know what we can take advantage of, and so really using all of the resources that we have, folks like yourselves and other boards, to figure out how we best market to those industries so that we can do kind of targeted development as we start to see ourselves kind of run out of space to put new projects. So I'll let Ben talk a little bit about what he's working on, and then we can dive into the Economic Development Council.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's nice to see some familiar faces, and for those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, it's great to meet you all. So I'm just going to go through a few different things. I picked out a few different initiatives the Economic Development Department's working on right now that I think are more relevant to the near future. So I'll go through those, and then I'll leave some time if you guys have any questions or comments for it. So the first thing that's kind of on our radar is the state is proposing new legislature regarding additional dwelling units, ADUs. I think we're looking to comply with this legislature. We're also working on the town's housing production plan at the moment. And I think that ADUs are going to be key to leveraging the housing production plan and creating new opportunities for housing. The two main distinctions that the state's proposing that we don't quite meet right now is by right and then also the attachment. So ADUs right now are not by right. You need a special permit, and it can go up to about 1,200 square feet. The state is basically saying it's all by right at 900 square feet. In addition to this, like I mentioned before, in Tyngsborough, you can basically only have an ADU if it's attached to an existing property. The state is looking to make this by right to have a detached, like a tiny home, just a, if you want to include a garage that's not attached, something like that. So we're gonna look to see what we can do with town council to ensure that we're in compliance and that we're, using this best of our ability to solve the housing problem. All right, next, the Economic Development Department has a grant currently. I was looking to use some of those funds to build a sub-site for the Economic Development Department. The key focus for this sub-site would essentially be to provide business owners and anybody looking to do any permitting with additional resources. I think, especially if you're a business person or you're unfamiliar with how the process works or zoning bylaws in general, I think that, a lot of this stuff can be overwhelming in terms of what department do I need to go to, what resources do I need, what do I need to submit. The overall goal would be to provide people with these resources and to also be able to do some of the heavy lifting for them so I can get back to them and make the process easier. So this would essentially be, geared towards making it a more business-friendly, permitting-friendly town. So, people don't have to feel overwhelmed or, nervous to reach out with, all the headaches that might come with it. And then, so the last point would be the Economic Advisory Council. I'd say one of my favorite aspects of the job so far has been getting to engage with business community, getting to meet the business owners who are a very diverse group in town, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different businesses, getting to know why they wanted to start in Tyngsborough, what are some of the pains they have. In addition to meeting with different developers, both commercial and residential, who have interest in building in town, it's definitely made me realize that having people who are in town and who are supporting the business community, their input is definitely going to be extremely valuable to me. The decisions we make in town as to what developments we bring in and the different types of development we bring in are going to be affecting them ultimately, and they're people who have been, in town, some for decades. So I think, having a diverse group to, advise me on these matters and to, ask for advice for and make sure they're comfortable with things going on in town is gonna make it both easier for me to, you know, help developers, and then it'll also be easier to, you know, give the town direction in terms of, you know, everybody being happy. So, yeah.
And I think that the importance of the Economic Development Advisory Committee is really going to be, one, this is a goal, part of a sub-goal of the Select Board's fiscal year '25 goals. But I think also it really will give us, Ben and I know what Tyngsborough's strengths are, and if we're speaking to potential businesses, it's easy for us to highlight that. I think what we're missing is neither Ben nor myself have operated a business in Tyngsborough or tried to open a business in Tyngsborough or tried to open a business in a different community and have that kind of a perspective. We know we have a lot of business owners who are very involved in town, whether it's through philanthropy to our rec programs or actually participating in community-wide events. We see this as a unique opportunity to let them tell us what their experience has been like. It will also help us continue what I think has been a very successful trend of that targeted growth, where the planning board is aligned with the master plan and with the housing production plan, and this board is aligned. Getting this on an informal level. We're not looking to create another public body subject to the open meeting law. These meetings, of course, will certainly be open to the public, but we're looking for kind of an informal way for us to hear directly from businesses, from members of this board. If you look at the charge, it calls for a member of the select board and a member of the planning board to really collectively come up with ways that we can best market Tyngsborough, but not just to new businesses, to also support the ones that are currently here.
Fantastic. Well, I'll open it up to the board for questions, comments. Start with
So, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
When I was going through the master plan, we had quite a bit of a discussion about this, so I kind of wanted to, relay some of that. Our
Absolutely.
previous planner, Eric Salerno, it would be safe to say, wasn't a big advocate of this. But the more and more we talked to him about it, one of the things that, some of the things he was concerned about is a lot of times, he got all the action items, everybody just had, a way of discussing things, but, okay, so, I would expect that, that's the way it should work and everything. But then the more and more we started digging into it, the one thing that did resonate with me a little bit is, it was good at the start, but after a while, the same ideas started coming up, and it wasn't as fruitful as it was at the start. And there were some committee members on the master plan committee that, was kind of a little leery about putting this in, but in the end, we did put it in, and personally, especially hearing the description of the way you're looking at this, I think it's a good thing to have, and I support this. The only thing I would add is, I'd like to put a deadline on this, not a deadline, but it goes for 2 years, and then it needs to come in front of the board, so we put it out there again. So 2 or 3 years sounds like a good idea. But as you discussed, getting a whole bunch of people together, talking things through, talking about the challenges and issues that we have, some of the advantages we have, and how to market that more effectively is something that I've been advocating for quite a while. I'll let somebody else from the select board volunteer for this, though. Thank you.
Not so fast. Okay. Thank you for providing a little bit of background on that. So, Mr. Moran, did you want to?
Oh, yeah, I have a couple of questions. It's wonderful to meet you. Thank
You as
you for coming in tonight. I like the idea of the sub-site you mentioned, and I just wanted to just kind of dig into some of the stuff, especially related to the discussion tonight with the recycling schedule, where you had seen a picture, visual. I'm interested in the same thing, but from a permitting process or what type of workflow you're talking about visually that could be shown on this site as to here's what you need to do, here's what needs to do next, here's what needs to do next. Because I think sometimes people think about the bureaucracy. I mean, we're not a huge town, so thankfully we don't have bureaucracy like some other parts of the government entities that exist. But my big thing is the workflow of that and I'm not talking to make this seem too simple, but to simplify it for people who go to the site and say, oh, that I didn't know, that I wasn't aware of, right? You open a restaurant, you need the health department, you need other things besides just a permit, occupancy, and I can go. There's, if you want to sell booze, you have to have the correct liquor license. Where is that? That type of workflow, I think visually would be good for, we've had some of the people who come before us before for renewals of licenses or transfer of licenses, and English may not be their first language. And so to help out that community or any community, or myself, with a picture. And so that, I think, is one of my recommendations for the sub-site that you're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working pretty closely with our IT director, Tom LaFlamme. And in addition to what we're trying to do on Civic Plus, we're also looking to OpenGov, because the planning board is currently not utilizing OpenGov a lot for their permitting process. So I think overall, we're trying to just basically ramp up, like everything that we can do digitally, we want to kind of try to move in that direction. So what you brought up is a great point, and it's something we're definitely looking into. I want to, see what we're able to do for permitting using OpenGov and see if we can link it to Civic Plus to make it easy. Like you just go on the website, it's all right there. Using the pictures is a great idea. And then in addition to that, I also want to see what we can utilize in Civic Plus in order to create, I guess, like forms would be a good way to put it. So if you're a business owner, instead of putting, having to track down, I'm opening a pizza shop and having to track down each individual thing to do that. There's just a form basically, and there's different business forms for different types of businesses, restaurants, and then you can essentially just kind of pitch your idea, I guess is a good way to put it. And then that's where I was talking about earlier, where I can do some of the heavy lifting on the back end and then come to you with the answers. So that way it's really interactive. You don't really have to do a lot. You would basically just tell us what you're looking to do, and then I'd reach out to basically give you the steps to do that. So I definitely think adding pictures and more visual elements to it on the site would be great, but yeah, that is definitely something we have in mind.
Thank you. That's my only question I had.
Thank you. Selectperson Schneider.
I had similar points as Mr. Moran. I was thinking more than just pictures of templates, like you're mentioning.
Yeah.
You have a template for a restaurant business, you have a template for a warehouse business, perhaps, so that you're not pouring through everything that may not apply to you. But great ideas, and wish you much success and pleasure meeting you. So thank
You
you.
as well. Thank you very much.
Good.
Selectperson Gilfus.
Hello again, Beth.
Hello.
I'm glad that we're getting more time with you. It's been great, even in our couple of conversations through the housing production plan. So much of this is new for me and outside of anything that I do in my day-to-day. And so I am just delighted every time I get to ask questions and hear about this. And, I did not know what an ADU was until 3 months ago. So, I'm enthusiastic. Really, no questions, just enthusiasm and support. Really excited about the website. I think that that's going to be awesome. So if you're looking for feedback or, want to talk that through, I'd love to be a part of that. I'm curious who wants to be representing the select board on this.
Take that as-
One at a time.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Cohen, did you want to continue on? I know you set the stage. I didn't know whether that was everything that you wanted to cover at this. Before I go.
That's everything I wanted to cover. I guess the only other thing, I guess I'll add now that looking this over again, one of the other things I was going to mention is I do like the membership. Having, the town manager, member of the planning board, select board, and more importantly, members of the business community, and then residents at large.
Mhm.
And so I think that's, a good membership, and I think that will help everybody, in this committee.
Well, let me start with the committee. I think it's great. I think that, as we've talked about many times and is certainly in our goals, we want to get more economic development from the commercial side. We're so heavily reliant upon the residential tax base that it's an undue burden on them, and so we need to figure out how we alleviate some of that. I did look up some other towns, what they have in there, and between Lexington and Lincoln and some of these others. I like this, the breakdown of participants. I think it's always going to be as valuable as the people. So I think we want to have people who are eager and people who are willing to put aside personal things and wanting to grow their business. That's not the purpose of this. It's really to help the town. So I think it's going to be important for us to find the right people. I would like to see, so the website and having those types of things, I think that's great. I think in the crawl, walk, run vernacular, that's a good crawling thing. I would like to see how we can leverage some of the information that we have to understand what types of businesses are not well represented. And, can we connect in, whether it's an MCOG or something at the state level, to look at commerce, to say, we don't have medical facilities, for example, in this area, and then can we leverage this to recruit and go talk to those types of companies and say, hey, you have a great opportunity here. Here's the demographics. Here's the breakdown. Being proactive in trying to find that. I hear a lot of people say, oh, it'd be nice if we had this type of shop. Well, it's great to say that, but we don't get to dictate that. However, we can influence it, and we can sit there and try to recruit certain companies and make it advantageous to do things that not only, it's not just growing a business, right? If you have 3 or 4 of the same type of business, does anybody really win in that type of situation? So, I think it's great that we're doing things that are a little bit more data-driven. Let's try to go that extra mile and go a little bit further with some of those things. I think it's important because a lot of our economic happens in Middlesex Road, and we're right near Nashua, and so we have to take a look at that information as well. So I think that it is incumbent upon us as a select board to help you achieve some of those, and I think it's important that a good first step is to start with that committee to get some of those ideas out there and prioritize things. We can't tackle everything, but we can certainly prioritize some key things and figure out how we, turn those into actionable items. It's great to talk strategy, but ultimately we have to execute on it. So I'm on board. I don't know procedurally, Colin, are you looking for a vote from us to establish the council, or is it we're just floating this idea right now and we're going to have a more formal thing on that?
I'm certainly not, I don't need a formal vote. I wanted to, if the board, which it appears is favorable to this, because we're not looking to establish a new public body that's subject to the open meeting law, I won't ask you to adopt the charge. It's clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the board is supportive of this. I think Ben and I will now go back, put together some additional information, refine this, so we can start outreach to get people to join. And at a subsequent meeting, I could ask the board to appoint their designee.
Okay. Yeah, I that's more I was just trying to understand. I think it's good to raise this. Don't wait too long.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair, nobody really discussed it after I mentioned. Does the rest of the board feel it's a good idea to make this like a 2 or 3 year, create this, and then come back to the board and see if we need to go further with it?
I look at it, from my perspective, I look at it very similar to what we did with the zoning review. There's going to be a bunch of work that needs to happen. I think that first year is really where you get most of the activity, and then there's going to be some execution on it. So I think that 2 or 3 year timeline sounds good. I'm hesitant on a 2 year because it might not be long enough, but I definitely don't want it to be in perpetuity. And I think anything longer than 3 years is probably too much before we revisit it.
I think one thing too that I'd note is that under the deliverables, our goal would be for them to provide, whether through Ben or a spokesperson of the group, quarterly updates. So there certainly may become a point where one of those quarterly updates this board feels, or a future board feels like, okay, we've kind of exhausted unlike your appointments to other boards that are subject to the open meeting law, these people won't be sworn in by the town clerk, so you don't need to set a term for each individual member, but I certainly do agree, over the course of 2 or 3 years worth of quarterly updates, this board may say, okay, under its current structure, it's reached its useful life, and then perhaps has feedback for me and Ben about how we can shift their work to be more relevant, I guess is the term I'd use.
Yeah, does anybody have any thoughts, timeline, if we say, come back to us with a proposal where the committee is in place for no more than 3 years, and, how it might look in the updates? Seeing a lot of heads nodding.
Yeah,
which
2 or
is
3
good.
years is fine.
I mean, you could always extend it, too.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's-
No,
it's-
I'm hoping this is massively successful, and that we can then get some new people, right, and different ideas, and it be somewhat perpetual.
It is interesting to think about the crawl, walk, run, because if we do like a 2 to 3 year term, and then it does change and, the dynamics change, whatever the charge is, then you have potentially another 2-year term before we do our housing production plan again. And so I hope that in 5 years, when we're doing the housing production plan, we're in a really different space and we're having different conversations about what the town looks like. So I think that is structured really well to scaffold and set us up for success.
And I won't even blow your mind by crawl, walk, run, fly.
Ooh.
So I think we've got something on that one.
Yep.
On the ADUs, so, zoning review, are we, because that sounds like zoning bylaw type of review item. Is this on that radar? Where are we on that one?
So we're not anywhere yet.
Okay.
The legislature the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities just last Thursday, I think, released their guidelines.
Mhm.
Council is reviewing those guidelines, and we'll work with council to determine the scope of the changes. It's very possible that the changes that we have to make to our bylaw are so minimal that it may not warrant going back to the zoning review committee. And Ben and I had this conversation last Wednesday. Depending on the scope, I certainly think it would make sense, as the board knows, you extended the charge or the duration of the zoning review committee to June 30th. If we're looking at more than minor changes, I would recommend to go back to the zoning review committee. Funny enough, I'm meeting with Bob Mitchell on Wednesday, who's the consultant we use. There's still roughly $4,000 left in that grant budget. If it is substantial, we could engage Bob Mitchell to help with that. If it's not substantial, either way, he wants to talk about some potential remaining items. So I expect once we get a better idea from council and once we've had a chance to fully dive into the regulations, we'll know if it's simple enough that we can just fast track it to the planning board. If it is more complex and there's more input required, I would recommend to go back to the zoning review board.
That's perfect. I was concerned we were behind and we needed to do so.
Well,
It's still being clarified.
technically, everyone is behind because as the state does, just like with the MBTA communities, they passed the law and they said that everyone had to be in compliance by February 1st, but they
Right.
said that EOHLC would release their guidelines, I think, by September 30th, and they just released them now. So
Right.
nobody expects that there'll be any enforcement.
Right.
I think maybe 2 communities, last time I spoke to NIMCOG, in the state have already gone to town meeting or are going to town meeting this winter. Everybody is anticipating that it'll be a May item.
Right.
And the state has basically indicated that that's how they'll operate.
And to be clear, it's not, I don't know that you're gonna have the same uproar as MBTA's. I mean,
Right.
this is, there are parameters around this and, it's,
Where this is a bigger issue is in communities that prohibited ADUs. Tyngsborough already has a bylaw that allows it with certain regulations, so all we're looking at potentially is relaxing some of our constraints, although to be honest, our constraints aren't super dramatic in Tyngsborough. A lot of it is at the discretion of the special permit granting authority.
Right.
So it won't have as big of an impact, you're right.
so, yeah, I mean, fantastic that you're on board. I have heard extremely positive things about your actions and your eagerness to dig in. I think that's exactly what we need is way to look at this. Eric did a great job, and we were concerned that there might be a drop-off, but now that you're here, I think that we're heading back in the right track, because as I said, this is really important to the town to get, our commercial side. And one thing that I think is really going to be important here is doing it in a way that maintains the character of Tyngsborough. We do not want to become a city, and I think it's a matter of how do we do that effectively. Some towns do it well. Some towns struggle with it, and we want to make sure that we do it well. So unless anybody has anything else, I'm not sure what so come in every quarter, let's have an update and see how we're doing and how we can help.
Sure.
I would encourage that, and if there's, anything else in the meantime, I know Colin's not shy, so.
Yeah, and one thing to add too, I've done this for Jackie, but if you guys ever need anything, if you're ever curious about something I'm working on, I like to think I'm pretty well organized and I enjoy data. So if there's any particular thing you're looking for, anything I can provide you with, just reach out. I'm happy to, make an update report for you guys on something particular, but yeah, I'm available. And like I said, if anything is helpful to you guys, I'd be more than happy to help out. So
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you
you.
for coming in.
have a great evening.
You too.
All right, let's move to 5B. American Multi-Cinema, Inc., change of manager application, 440 Middlesex Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Included in your packet this evening is an application from the American Multi-Cinema, Inc., AMC Theaters, for a change of manager at the facility located at 440 Middlesex Road from Michelle Powers to Daniel Shepard. We have requested comments from the departments having jurisdiction in the area, and there is no adverse comments. This application does not require a formal hearing, and as such, no abutters notification nor legal ad are necessary.
I will open up to the board. Any questions, comments?
This is just a change of manager for the liquor license stuff, and all the necessary paperwork looks to be in order.
Well summarized. Okay, so with that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the change of manager application for American Multi-Cinema.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That carries 5-0-0. Parcel naming, Sherburne Ave Open Space, vote to release public survey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the board's last meeting on December 2nd, I presented a plan to come up with a formal name for the new recreation parcel on Sherburne Ave. Not that anyone on this board needs a reminder, but for those that aren't familiar, this is the site of the old Tyngsborough Country Club, where the town is spending more than $1 million on new recreation amenities. At that same meeting, I was asked to talk to the Historical Commission to ensure we had a full understanding of the history of the parcel, and to present up to 4 options for this board to consider including in a public survey that we will release between this evening and your next meeting. I spoke to a few longtime residents, including the chair of the Historical Commission, Warren Allgrove, and have confirmed that the land in question had been a golf course for as long as they could remember and were aware. That said, based off of our conversation last time, I propose that the following options be included in a public survey: Ironwood Park, Ironside Park, Country Club Park, and Clubhouse Park. Unless the board wishes to amend or add to that list, I'd recommend that we vote to release the survey with the deadline to respond of Thursday, December 26th, and I will plan to present the results of the survey at the board's January 6th meeting for formal acceptance and adoption of the new name.
Is this non-binding?
Technically,
We had
correct.
alluded to that, but I didn't know.
Yes, the survey would be non-binding. I would, of course, caution you that anytime you solicit public feedback, if you don't have a good reason to avoid.
And that's why I was,
Yeah.
that's why I was going through, so.
Yes, but it is technically non-binding.
And there's no write-in.
There will be no write-in option that could get too
That's
hectic.
why I wanted to make sure I
Certainly.
clarified those 2 items.
You'd have somebody launch a writing campaign.
I just wanted to make sure. I've seen whether it's snow plows or things
Yeah.
like that with municipalities, and you get some rather interesting names. So it would just be these 4.
Correct.
No write-ins.
Correct.
While non-binding, we certainly value the community, and we don't encourage ballot stuffing.
Correct.
All right, I'll open up to the rest of the board. Questions or comments? Mr. Moran?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Schneider?
Equally fine.
Select Person Gilfus?
I look forward to voting.
When would the survey be released, do you think?
I can have it released first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. My only concern is, it's the holiday, it's the holiday
Short time.
season, and it may be a short time. I'm good with doing this. That's really my only concern, and I did talk to our town manager about that, and he said, well, if we don't get a lot of people that vote, then we know that we probably should extend it at that point also.
Mr. Chair, you could probably throw it on some of the Facebook groups.
We should, yeah.
And get people just to comment or
Yep.
vote.
I also would like to apologize. That should say Thursday, January 3rd.
Okay.
That's the Thursday before your next meeting.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, how long you needed to compile
Yeah, no,
the vast data that this will entail.
it should be Thursday, January 3rd, 2025.
Okay.
My apologies.
January 3rd, you said?
Yes. So
So,
that'll buy an extra week for
right,
folks.
so the motion is going to have that date.
Yep, I will update it.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I think, any one of those names are fine with me. I wanted to make sure that we didn't, and I wanted to make sure we didn't miss something glaringly obvious relative to a historical thing, and I'm glad that you did your homework there, and I appreciate that. So I am on board with this. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the Select Board authorize the survey as presented with a deadline to respond of January 3rd, 2025.
Second.
2025. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That carries 5-0-0.
After our last meeting, when we talked about this, David and I from Tyngsborough Media had a wonderful conversation about people from our history that we should not name it after, which brought me to the special collections in the library. I read all about some rather contentious people from Tyngsborough's past, and so this has been a real interesting learn for me. There's some really good stuff in the special collections.
Oh, yes.
Check it out.
Yes.
Ghost stories. That's all you need to know.
5D, Toll Brothers Contract Amendment regarding open space improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you all remember, last spring, we accepted the parcel of land that was donated to the town, the one we just discussed. And by doing so, entered into an agreement with Toll Brothers that would require that they install certain drainage structures on the town side, and also that they would, by virtue of the recording of their condo association document to the Registry of Deeds, required that the condo association in perpetuity maintain the structures. That agreement was the result of concerns about water issues that were originating on the development side across the street. We did that to protect the town. We didn't want to inherit the land and then have flooding. Over the course of the last year, we extended the agreement twice now, and I'm asking for a third extension tonight, because the planning board had required certain drainage work be done on the development side. And the fear from members of the planning board was that if we did the underground drainage structures on the town side before they fixed their water issues, we didn't want the underground structures on our side to become the catch-all for all of their water. So we wanted to ensure that they had fixed their water issue before we installed ours. We maintain, our town engineer and superintendent of public works, Jake Zwicker, as well as the peer review, there are no current issues on the town side. This is a protection that will help the town in the future, but we are currently not experiencing any issues. So it's not like it's a time-sensitive necessity. It has taken quite a bit of time, more time than I think the planning board was expecting, for Toll Brothers to complete the required work on the development side, namely injection grouting, which basically created seepage collars throughout their underground utility trenches to prevent water, groundwater namely, from finding a way from their side to the road and the town side through the water trenches. They finally did that work 3 weeks ago at this point, but given the fact that we've been in a drought and haven't had any substantial rain, no one is comfortable saying for certain that that has fixed the issue. We're now going into the winter, so I can't expect that we'll have, aside from snow and some freezing incidents, enough time for us to say, yeah, look, this worked. And even if we could, we don't want them digging up the town side in the middle of the winter. So that said, I met with Toll Brothers last week, our superintendent of public works, and the peer review engineer for the planning board, and we've all collectively agreed that we should extend this one final time to June 30th. It is in Toll Brothers' best interest to walk away from this project as soon as they can, so it's not like they're dragging their feet. This is something that we've asked for. So all I'm asking tonight is that you change the deadline to complete the work, which currently stands as January 1st, 2025, to June 30th, 2025. The rest of the terms remain the same. We still have a bond in the town's possession should Toll Brothers walk away without doing the work. And they will still be held to the same standards of having to perpetually maintain the structures. We just want to make sure that we can say with complete certainty that the work that we want done on the other side fixed the issue. And I should note that none of this work is going to interfere with what we're developing on that side. This is proposed to go in an area where we have no plans for development.
I will open it up to the board for questions or comments. Mr. Cohen, did you want to start?
Sure. So first of all, I'd like to thank the planning board. They've taken this issue very seriously. I've heard a lot of discussion, about this issue in the water. They've taken this, they've really worked with Toll Brothers to make sure that they actually fix everything they possibly can to prevent water from going on our side. Just so the residents know, one of the reasons it's coming to our side is there's a pipe underneath Sherburne Ave that nobody really knew of. It was kind of covered up, and I happened to be there with the DPW manager and Toll Brothers, and all of a sudden we kind of realized why so much water was going to the other side of Sherburne Ave. There was a pipe, and that is still there, and it will remain there no matter what. But hopefully no water gets to that and it stays on the development side. But again, kudos to the planning board and our DPW director. They've done a phenomenal job of really working with Toll Brothers to make sure they can do absolutely everything they possibly can to minimize or hopefully, not have any water come to the other side of Sherburne. Now, if it does come to Sherburne, there's, just so the residents know, it's not affecting our sports amenities that we just put there. Really what it would affect is the walking path that we put in there. It does come over, and then the walking path is I don't know how far it is, but it's a little ways. So I think this is a good solution, and, waiting till after the spring is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Person Gilfus.
Yeah, again, to echo what Mr. Cohen said, I think just there's been tremendous diligence and thoughtfulness from everyone that's involved, and really making sure that this was done correctly and thoroughly. And so I certainly support extending. I would want to make sure that it was right, and I think it's a really smart call out that we have not sufficiently tested and validated that it is up to our standards. So, yeah, I think this is very smart. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider.
Yeah, I'm certainly hopeful that by June 30th, we'll have some rain. We'll have bigger problems to deal with, but yeah, I'm all in favor of it, and I think it's a very prudent idea to extend it out.
Mr. Moran.
Yep, all good.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm fine. It's a timeline thing, and I'm appreciative of the diligence and the patience on this. This is one of those things. It's not like Toll Brothers is leaving. We already talked about it. They still have more to do. So definitely bumping out to June 30th makes total sense. And so I think we should do it. And as a result, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the Select Board amend the agreement with Toll Brothers by extending the deadline to complete the required work to June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That carries 5-0-0. Select Board reports. Mr. Miranda, you want to start?
Sure. Last meeting of the year, so Merry Christmas. Hope you enjoy the holidays.
Mr. Schneider.
Ditto.
Select Person Gilfus.
Everyone, I hope that you stay healthy this holiday season. If you are sick, stay home or wear a mask. Test for COVID and don't give it to your friends and family. Have happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays all. Have a good one. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I already said all the stuff during the town manager report. This is our last meeting of the year, so fantastic job, all of you, this year. Appreciate all your efforts. I look forward to what 2025 brings. In the meantime, I hope all of our residents have a fantastic holiday and a new year, and that everybody is safe. Our next meeting is January 6th of 2025. We also have another meeting on the 27th. Just note that there's a 3-week gap between those two meetings. So with that, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into executive session under exemption 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body. And the chair so declares. Drake Water Supply District.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Moran.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
I am also in favor. With that, thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.